Welcome to the Creative Penn podcast. I'm Joanna Penn, thriller author and creative entrepreneur, bringing you interviews, inspiration and information on writing craft and creative business. You can find the episode show notes, your free author blueprint and lots more at thecreativepenn.com, and that's Penn with a double N. And here's the show. Hello creatives, I'm Joanna Penn. And this is episode number 751 of the podcast, and it is Friday, the 17th of May, 2024, as I record this. In today's show, I'm talking to Jenna Moreci about outlining her novels, how to integrate tropes in a natural way, how to get over all the distractions and procrastination to actually get on and write your book, deciding on whether to go indie or traditional, the importance of consistency and time in the market, tips on video marketing, and more. So that's coming up in the interview section. In publishing related things, if you need help with editing, I put out a tutorial this week on how to use Pro Writing Aid. Yes, I actually show you how I use it. It is on the blog and on YouTube and includes the new features for more developmental editing. And of course, as ever, I use a human editor as well. Kristen has been on the show, but I always use Pro Writing Aid as part of my process. So that is at thecreativepenn.com, links in the show notes. I also really enjoyed the interview with Martha Carr on the Wish I'd Known Then podcast this week about embracing change and starting over. And Martha was on this show back in February 2023, just over a year ago, so it's great to hear about how she continues to reinvent herself and her business. Now, Martha started out co-writing and also doing the rapid release KU model a few years back and has now moved into a more sustainable model for her health and lifestyle, combining Kickstarter, and also she has set up a Shopify store with one book, planning for success and getting over any technical hurdles while she doesn't have such a big backlist. So hopefully I thought that might encourage some of you. I get this question all the time. Is it worth setting up direct sales when you only have one book? It's also a very emotionally honest episode about how difficult it is to restart after a difficult life situation. Martha had cancer treatment, and Jamie talks about the death of her sister. But we are also authors, and we have to reinvent ourselves if we want to keep doing this work that we love, and how we cannot go back to what used to work when we were successful years ago, or what even used to work for other people years ago. Now, both Jamie and Martha had success in that old model, and at one point Jamie says, "I feel like I'm starting over too, having not put out a book for a while. But I am still struggling to get back what I had instead of looking towards what I can have, and that's a hard place to be." Like Becca, and that's Becca Syme, counsellor to us all, has told us that I need to let it go, just let it go, and move towards what's coming next. But it's hard when you've had success. You want to do the things you think will give you back that success instead of trying the new things and moving forward. And Martha replies, "It's tough, and I was where you were 6 months ago." And so I like that quote. I think it is very relevant to what I'm going to talk about next as well, of course, AI. But this is a great episode around reinvention, as the longer you are in this industry, or indeed any industry, the more you need to re-examine your processes. And I'm doing this right now. I'm outsourcing more. I'm also looking to use AI tools for more, so I can do more of what is uniquely me and what I guess I bring that is not what other things and people can offer. And that is so important. Like I said to a friend of mine who is also a writer, you are not a word generator. That is not your value. And we have to revalue ourselves, a changing business. We're authors, we're creators, we're about ideas, we're about beautiful products. We're about curiosity. We're about connection. Word generation is not the thing that is uniquely us. What the meaning is in those words really is. So this is the challenge this week. How can you do more of what is uniquely you? So in AI news this week, it is a very big week, or it has been a very big week in AI. OpenAI released ChatGPT 4.0, which stands for 4 Omni, which is a multimodal model. It means it can see, hear, speak and read, and it can see through your phone camera. It is lightning fast. It is a better coder. It's better at data analysis. It is more creative. I'll link to that, or you can just go to openai.com and that's essentially the week of the 15th of May. And here's the important thing. So even if you're like, oh yeah, sure, another model, and there's lots of them, but here is what is so important. This is free. This is being rolled out for free to anyone, pretty much anyone, except for North Korea and some other countries that are not getting access for obvious reasons. But I always have in mind a young woman in India whose native language isn't English, but she is curious and smart and creative and wants to do all the things in the world. But she has not had the opportunities that I have had. Well, now she has the opportunity. It also has real-time translation, which they demoed, which caused the Duolingo stop. And Duolingo is a language learning app. The stock dropped on the announcement because they have a demo where one person speaks Italian and GPT translates that into English and the other person speaks in English and it translates it to Italian, and it's kind of real time, no latency. Now that's being rolled out at the moment, so depending on when you hear this, it might be out in your country, but it's rolling out. But the thing is, this is free. So you can go to OpenAI or chatgpt.com. They've got that URL now. So just go to chatgpt.com, check that in the top left-hand corner it has 4.0 as the model, and then have a go with things. But to me, this means the acceleration of adoption has taken another gear, like it's jumped a gear. And even one of my staunchly not anti-AI, but just like, why would I bother, friends, has told me she started using it this week. Which is like when my mum got a Kindle, because for many years my mum was like, no, I'm just going to read books. And then she got a Kindle and it really just changed her processes. But also it took her many years. So when this friend of mine said this, I was like, okay, that is very interesting. And it is because it's free. And because before the 3.5 model definitely is not as good. If you tried it before on the 3.5 free version, try it again on the 4.0. So yes, this is being rolled out. And I just thought I'd mention a few things that even just this week, questions about my garden, recipes. So you can take a picture of what's in your fridge and ask it to do a recipe. Questions about your pet's behaviour and health. Your kids' behaviour and health, or your own. Brainstorming ideas, marketing. Oh, in fact, one of the things I did this week was upload just a massive amount of research notes that I had about a topic. And I said, can you just organise this for me? And it organised it into something coherent that I could then start to structure that information, which was very useful. Marketing, ad copy, researching podcasts to pitch. This is a good tip because you're listening to podcasts. You know how hard it is if you want to pitch for book to a podcast, is researching the right podcast to pitch. Also, writing a pitch letter. A lot of people who pitch me could really use some help with their pitch letters. So many things. So yes, chatgpt.com. I have also been playing with it for data analysis. So I just dumped a zip file of book sales data and then said, analyse this. And that was the prompt, analyse this. I saw it on Twitter, so I thought I'd try it. And it was really amazing. So at the moment, I'm just playing with it, getting it to generate graphs and charts. And as someone who's been wide for many years, and I get sales reports from so many different places, that I just kind of haven't looked at this for a long time. And I used to pay someone to kind of put all these charts together. And I know some people say, oh, well, there are tools that do this. But there are tools, but they don't aggregate everything, and they often have glitches and problems. I have tried most of them. Anyway, now you can just dump the files in and say, analyse this, and it will come up with some great data. It's also better at handwriting to plain text, so you can take a picture of your granddad's diary, like a friend of mine is doing at the moment, and upload that, and it will turn it into typed text. I might even try that for my own diaries. If you are a parent with school-age kids, check out the tutor video that Sal Khan from Khan Academy posted, because there is an app which will be Mac only, which is quite funny given that Microsoft has worked with OpenAI. But yes, it can actually see the iPad. So in this video, Sal Khan and a boy is doing maths, and it actually acts as a tutor. So this is amazing because I'm sure a lot of people can't actually do their kids' maths homework. And in order to learn, it needs to be explained, right? So this is a sort of personal tutor. But also this means it is the homework apocalypse because the best model is now free. So even if you don't want to use these tools, your kids, your grandkids will. So you need to learn about this. And of course, the adoption in the younger age groups is much higher than the adoption in the older age groups. So yes, please have a go. Also, if you would like to use Claude 3 and you're in Europe, because I get a lot of questions about this. In the UK, we've had it, but in Europe, you haven't. But now Claude 3 is available in Europe. I still think Claude 3 has a wonderful creative style. 4.0, though, is very good. So yeah, if you want to do this for free, then just use 4.0. But if you want to play with Claude, that's now available in Europe. Also this week, Google had their Developer I/O conference, and they announced a ton of things. Also, pretty similar really to the OpenAI stuff, but it's not free and it's not available right now. But I think the main thing for publishing and content businesses is that they are starting the rollout of the changes to search. Now, this will be in the US initially and then will roll out worldwide as ever. I talked about this in December 2023 in episode 727, how generative AI search will impact book discoverability in the next decade. I went into detail in that episode, so have a listen to that or read the notes where I have screenshots and things. But this is now starting to happen. So as ever, I say in the next decade, and then it happens within a few months. But this is basically rolling out. Also have a listen to the Hard Fork podcast episode this week for responses on this from two journalists, as Casey Newton and Kevin Roose talk about the moment they had when they realised the implications of some of this stuff. Casey has an article on his site, Platformer, reporting on the changes, noting that tech research firm Gartner predicts traffic to the web from search engines will fall 25% by 2026. So over the next couple of years, if your business is dependent on search traffic, whether that's your personal business, your employer, and yes, a lot of book sales come from these things, start thinking about this potential impact. And of course, that also has ramifications for media companies. So if, for example, you're with a traditional publisher and they use traditional media to do book stuff, that will impact them too. So you have to think about companies that sort of have several tiers back from where we are. On Hard Fork, Casey and Kevin also talk about AI vertigo, the feeling that comes when you consider how much is changing and how fast. Now, I hadn't really heard that term before, but that is absolutely how I felt this week when OpenAI announced that 4.0 would be free. I'm still feeling a bit of it, to be honest. I'm still like, okay, that was very surprising, and it has really shifted my feelings on how fast things are going to change because the adoption may now speed up. So I thought I'd mention it because I think you might know how this feels. AI vertigo or change vertigo is, oh my goodness, feeling a little bit dizzy with all the changes, and then you're kind of stunned. You don't know what to do. And I had that feeling this week, and I kind of sat there and went, well, what do I do? Do I just carry on? And when I thought, well, hell yes, I carry on. I just have to think about how I'm going to use these tools to make me more me, like I said earlier. What you do need to think is if you have busy work, if you have work that can be outsourced, can be done by other tools, that really you should be thinking about doing that so that you can double down on being human. You know, that is our mantra in this wave of change. So write the things only you can, connect with readers who want you to be you, develop multiple streams of income, and then you can approach these waves of change with curiosity rather than fear. Links in the show notes, as ever. So in personal news, Spear of Destiny is launching next week on Kickstarter. So I have been making marketing videos, doing extra content, doing interviews, making social media graphics and more. And yes, ChatGPT has been helping me with some of the heavy lifting, and so has Canva.com. Goodness me, what did we do before Canva? Canva.com if you haven't tried that yet. Also, that integrates, I believe it now has DALL-E, the image generation, within Canva. It is pretty good now. The Kickstarter pre-launch page is at jfpenn.com/destiny. And yeah, I'll be moving into launch phase very soon. As I said, I've also been playing with GPT 4.0 and working on the Vineyard book. I am not very good at focusing just on the launch. I do some kind of launch day work, marketing work, and then like yesterday or the day before, I had like a full day just on creative things because I just couldn't bear to do any more marketing. So yes, I have kind of playtime, which is time with the new thing, and then work time, which is launch stuff, because as ever, you have to have that finishing energy. You have to get the book into the world. And it's funny because obviously this beautiful book is sitting on my desk, the Spear of Destiny with all the silver foil and the photos and the ribbon and the head and tail bands and the custom end papers, and it's gorgeous. No one else has got it yet because I haven't launched it. And I'm trying to stop myself accelerating into the next project before I've launched this one. So it is coming. You can get the book very soon. So yes, hopefully I can just focus. No, I will. I'm very good at finishing energy. I know I am. I just need to keep telling myself that. Also, occasionally I do talk about health, and I wanted to this week because I had a bit of a milestone. I did a personal best deadlift, 100 kilograms, which is quite significantly more than my body weight. So yeah, I'm really happy with that. My squat and my bench press are also improving. And I have a goal of competing in a powerlifting competition once I'm 50 next year in 2025. Now, I feel great when I lift. It definitely has a lot of mental health benefits as well as physical. But remember, women lose muscle mass much faster post-menopause. So it is very important if you are a woman in peri or post-menopause. Obviously important for men too, but very good for women. And I also get to walk there and back. So it's around 12 kilometres to my trainer's gym. So I get some fresh air, and it is beautiful weather today. I get some nature. I listen to podcasts at 1.8 speed at the moment and focus on my health, and also bringing you the news. So it actually works quite well doing it on a Friday morning, and then I come back and I've got things for this podcast. So, and I guess the question this week for you is, how can you improve your health this week? Because even with all this exciting stuff and all the time we spend in our brains, we have bodies. We are authors and humans in a body. So we have to look after this body too. And if you don't know, maybe ask ChatGPT about it. And remember, the more specific your prompt about your situation, the better the advice will be. So thanks for your emails and comments and photos this week. Ryan sent me pictures of his garden with some lovely flowers. Over the years, I found gardening keeps me sane and provides balance to my more computer-oriented job. And in fact, I am also gardening. I'm embracing the midlife need to go to the garden centre. So I'm really happy with that. Anne said, I really enjoyed the mid-list author episode with T. Thorne Coyle while tending to my bees. Greetings from me and my Pennsylvania bees, and sent a picture of her wearing the beekeeping outfit, which was just awesome. I love. And if you're there listening with the bees, Anne, I'm waving from Bath in the UK. Also, Nat sent me lovely pictures of her gorgeous cats and a pair of squirrels. It's less about the where I listen, be it my home office or our backyard in St. Paul, Minnesota, and more about the who keeps me company. Also, a lovely comment from Katie, who said, thanks for always being on the cutting edge. I qualify as one of those authors who cried for joy when I found Pseudo-Write. Claude too, lots of exclamation marks. I can't wait to jump to the page every day and spend time with these writing buddies. I don't even care a smidge anymore about making it as an author because the process itself is so fun. I am now doing it for the reward of the experience rather than all of the external success-orientated reasons conversations I had in the past. This is a huge gift to me as a human being. In this sense, AI has made me more human, and the irony in that is not lost on me. And thank you so much, Katie. And this is how I feel too. I love spending time creating things with these AI tools, which I spend so much more time laughing and giggling and just having fun. Yeah, I'm having more fun now, as you've also said. I'm having more fun now than I probably ever have done as a writer. And that is, as you say, a huge gift. So please leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or on the YouTube channel, or message me on X at thecreativepenn, or email me, send me pictures of where you're listening, Joanna at thecreativepenn.com. I love to hear from you. It makes this more of a conversation. So today's episode is sponsored by Findaway Voices by Spotify, which I use to distribute my audiobooks to over 40 retailers and library services, including Spotify, Google Play, Storytel, Kobo and Nook Audio, Scribd, Overdrive, Hoopla and more, as well as mainstream services like Audible and Apple Books. Plus, as you retain control of your intellectual property, you can sell audiobooks direct through Kickstarter or other direct sales sites, Shopify or whatever you use. It also has distribution to Chirp, which is owned by BookBub, a great way to sell audiobooks in price promotion deals. And Findaway Voices by Spotify has a promotional dashboard where you can offer promotional pricing to different sites. With library services, you can get paid per checkout, making it much easier for libraries to afford your audiobook. Your listeners get it for free and you still get paid. And yes, remember, you can get all my audiobooks, pretty much all my audiobooks, at your library app. With Findaway Voices, you retain control and you can set your own price, which if you use another particular service, you'll know is not your choice. But with Findaway, you can do it. You set your price. You can take advantage of new opportunities as they arise. You can opt out of any retailers you don't want to distribute to. I'm currently loading up my audio files from my human narrator, Veronica Giguère, for the first 3 Arcane thrillers and Spear of Destiny, also coming soon. And the future looks exciting for more audio opportunity in the years to come if you control your rights. So I love Findaway Voices by Spotify, and every one of my audiobooks now goes through them. So take back your audio freedom and check out findawayvoices.com for your next audiobook project. So this type of corporate sponsorship pays for the hosting, transcription and editing, but my time in creating the show is sponsored by my community at patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Thanks to the 5 new patrons who've joined this week, and thanks to everyone who's been supporting for months and years. If you join the community, you get access to all the backlist videos and audio covering topics on creativity, AI, as well as mindset, business, publishing, marketing. And last week I did my patron-only Q&A, which is an extra solo show where I answer patron questions. And one patron said, "Absolutely the best hour of listening. You packed the conversation with helpful links to expand on the valuable ideas and answers you gave patrons. I appreciate your excellent format and, as ever, your cheerful delivery." So the Patreon is a monthly subscription, the equivalent of a black coffee a month or a couple of coffees if you're feeling generous. So if you get value from the show and you want more, come on over and join more than 1,000 authors. Thanks to everyone who supports the show. Join us at patreon.com, patreon.com/thecreativepenn. Right, let's get into the interview. Jenna Moreci is the best-selling author of dark fantasy romance, the Saviours series, and books for authors including Shut Up and Write the Book, a step-by-step guide to crafting your novel from plan to print. She's also a YouTuber at Writing with Jenna Moreci with over 300,000 subscribers. So welcome to the show, Jenna.
Thank you so much for having me. It is such an honor to be here.
Oh, I'm excited to talk to you. First up, tell us a bit more about you and how you got into writing and publishing.
Well, how I got into writing, this has literally been my lifelong dream ever since I was a child. I've wanted to be a writer since I was 6 years old. So it quite literally is a childhood dream fulfilled. With my first job after college, I was a stockbroker, which is just like writing, right? It is exactly the same thing, dealing with finances. So similar to writing. But basically, I was working full time in finance and I really, really, really just did not enjoy it. And I had this moment where I thought, you know what, this is going to be my life. I'm going to be trading stocks forever and I can't do it. So I thought I would, at the very least, give writing a shot since that was my dream. And I had been writing stories my whole life on the side. So I figured I would go ahead and try to write a book and see how it did. And my goal was for it to be a lucrative side gig, something that made my life feel fulfilling while I paid the bills in working in finance. And then along the way, things happened. My partner suffered a major accident. So I had to quit my job so I could sign on to be his caregiver and help him recover from the accident. And during that time, I started my YouTube channel. And I started it on a whim because a lot of people told me that I would be good at YouTube. It wasn't something I was really interested in because, like a lot of authors, I'm an introvert. I did not want my face on the internet. But I gave it a shot. My goal was 100 subscribers, and nearly 300,000 subscribers later, at some point it blew up. And because of the YouTube channel blowing up, my first novel sold well enough that I was able to make writing a full-time job. And now at this point in my life, I'm on my fifth and sixth novel, and I do YouTube full-time. I never thought that this would be where my life was headed, but here we are.
Yeah, I love that. And we have some similarities. My job before this was in accounts payable, and I used to implement systems, and so similar feeling of I just cannot do this for the rest of my life. So lots to come back on there. I've been through your book, so we'll start with the writing process and then we'll get back into YouTube and business. So you talk about structure and outlining in your book, and I'm a discovery writer, so I'm always absolutely fascinated by outlining. So can you talk about how you structure and outline your dark fantasy romances?
Well, the very first thing I do is what I call the thought dump, which is basically brainstorming, but thought dumping just feels like a more accurate picture. But basically, I just write down any and all idea that I have for the story. It doesn't need to be in any specific order. It doesn't need to be in any kind of structure. It's just any possible idea that I have. It could be streams of dialogue. It could be world building elements. It could be a fight scene. It could be a kiss scene. It doesn't matter. And once I feel like I have exhausted all of my ideas for that moment, then I start going through the ideas. And then I start finding the ones where it's like, this kind of sucks. We're not going to use this one. Or, this one is workable. This feels like it could be a plot point, or this feels like it could be the dark night of the soul or something like that. I start trying to find the gems amid the dump. And once I get to that point, it's sort of like piecing together a puzzle. I actually call it the puzzle phase, which is where I take the gems that I found in the thought dump and I sort of categorize them into specific plot points, like the first kiss or the inciting incident or different pieces of the rising action. And you can do this digitally. You can use some kind of software to do this. I like the physical feeling of doing this, so I usually do it with sticky notes and a poster board. And I will write down the plot points on the sticky notes and just rearrange them on the poster board until they fit some kind of realistic structure or sequence. At that point, there's going to be tons of holes because your thought dump is not going to be flawless. It's going to be incredibly flawed. So at that point, I start trying to fill in the holes. So it's like, I've got two pieces of the rising action, but I need more of a mini climax, or I need a greater crisis or something like that. And I start trying to figure out, how can I piece point A to point C? Where's the point B in the middle? So that's also part of the whole puzzle aspect. For me, it's fun figuring out how I can make all of these points combine together. Once I feel like I have a very full flow in terms of the structure and outline of the story, I start dividing it into chapters. I look for natural breaks where it's like, this would be a great cliffhanger, or I like to make sure that my chapters begin and end on very opposite emotional tones. So maybe if the chapter begins in a really happy way, I want it to end in a sad, scary, angry way. So it's just something that's very different from how it started. So I look for those shifts within the post-it notes essentially, and I start dividing it into chapters. And once I have that structure down, that's when I actually start the outline and I'll start typing it up. I will take elements from the thought dump that haven't been utilized, but I still really enjoy, and I will find places to shove those elements in. Maybe there's a big conversation that I want the two lovebirds to have, and I'm like, oh, it would fit really, really well in this particular scene. So it's just about taking the thought dump, breaking it down into its most basic pieces, and then once those pieces all fit together perfectly, adding in all of the extra fluff and details and everything that kind of makes the story shine.
And you have videos about tropes on your channel. And I think this is something that, I mean, I often look at my books later and go, oh, that's that trope. Whereas I Discovery wrote it and it ended up there. Do you look at the sort of the tropes of the romance and then you make sure that they go into that outline?
I'm sort of a little bit like you and a little bit planning that way. For me, the discovery aspect of writing is the character arc. I know where I want my characters to head, but I don't necessarily know how they're going to feel about it as the story progresses. And so that's what's really fun for me, is watching the transition of my characters, starting off as this one type of character and ending another way. And how do they feel about that? How did they get to that point? So a lot of tropes revolve around character development. So those tropes for me are always like, oh, look where we ended up. This is great. For example, my character Tobias, he starts off at the beginning of the book kind of a cinnamon roll, naive, doesn't really know politics and things like that. And by the end of the book, he ended up being quite morally gray. And morally gray is an on-trend character type right now. And it's considered a popular trope in romantasy books. And it wasn't something that I had originally planned, but here we are now. Now Tobias is a morally gray character. But then there are other tropes where it's just, I'm such a huge fan of the trope that I'm like, I gotta include this. So for example, forbidden romance is one of my favorite tropes. So that was one where I was like, right from the gate, this is going to be a forbidden romance. We have to do it. We have to make it happen.
Yeah, and combining those different things that you love with the things that the readers expect is I guess, the point. But just to come back on the actual writing, so you have this outline. So I guess, how long is your outline? Is it just like a 10-page Word document or something?
My outlines are long. I mean, and I say this in Shut Up and Write the Book, it completely depends on the person. Some people are pantsers or discovery writers. Some people really need a structure. Some people are somewhere in between. So when I say this, I just like to make sure everyone knows you don't have to do what I do. But my outlines can be like 30 pages long, super detailed. And it's funny because I'll have one chapter that is a page long outlined, and then I'll have another chapter that's just one line. It's like, they fight here. And then I get to that part of the outline and I'm like, oh no, now I have to figure everything out on the fly. But yeah, my outlines tend to be really long. And that's in large part because I'm very character focused, and a lot of the ideas that I come up with early on are conversations between characters. So I will have entire streams of dialogue in my outline just sort of waiting to be used. I know a lot of people in those situations will just write the conversation, write the scene in full, and then save it for later. I like to just shove it in my outline and be like, that is future Jenna's problem. Future Jenna can craft the conversation and the narrative around it, but this is what I want them to say in that moment.
No, well, you say it's quite long, but Jeffrey Deaver, the mystery writer, his outlines are like 200 pages long.
Okay, good. So that makes me feel better.
Yeah, you'll sound more, I guess, James Patterson famously does outlines, and I think his are sort of maybe 3 chapters each page. So yeah, it was such an interesting process. And of course, everybody listening does it differently too. But let's get on to the actual writing. So you've got this outline, and the title of your book for authors is Shut Up and Write, which is kind of funny because you have a book on writing and I have a book like How to Write a Novel. And we're basically saying, shut up and read our books and then go and write. So
right.
And I guess this is one of the problems for writers, or not a problem because we're a self-sustaining industry. But I definitely remember reading like probably 100 craft books before actually writing something. So how can newer authors get over the fear of putting the words on a page, or just stop with all the distractions and shut up and write? How can they get to that page if they're new writers?
That is a question. I host live streams on Mondays, and that's a question that I get almost in every single live stream. And every time I'm like, you're not going to like the answer. I'm so sorry. Because I know a lot of people, they just think the fear is going to go away if they do XYZ. They think, oh, like I just got to wave a wand and do a little dance and I don't know, eat this special food. It's not like that. From my experience, and I'm someone who, I've been doing this for a decade now, and I still have days where I'm like, oh, I don't want to write, it's going to be bad. I just know that everything I write is going to be terrible. I just feel like you just kind of have to grit your teeth and do it and understand that the fear is going to be there and it's not going to go away until you actually start writing words on the page. So I think a lot of it is just grit and getting it done and doing the thing. I think a lot of it is understanding that the fear is normal and it's not unique to you. Everyone experiences it at some point in time, and you just kind of have to open up the Word doc and keyboard smash. Just do something. And I feel like once you get the words flowing, the fear will start to dissipate, and then you wonder why you wasted so much time to begin with. Another thing is to set yourself up for success. And this is something that takes trial and error. Everyone thrives in their own unique way while writing. Everyone's different. So for example, I have a friend who has to be playing music while they write, whereas for me, music is more of an idea phase thing. It's not so much the writing process. I know some people who they can't have any distractions. They have to make sure that the Wi-Fi is off and there's nothing going on. It's just the blank Word document page. And for me, I need a little bit of distraction. I need the temptation of reward. So I thrive in the way of being like, okay, if I just finish this scene, I can take a break online and watch some YouTube videos or something like that. For me, it's just a matter of understanding what would make you most successful. Some people, they need to have an office that they write in. I need to be comfortable while writing. So I write in bed. And for other people, if they were to write in bed, they just fall asleep. So it's all about setting up your environment so it is most suitable for you to actually get words on the page. The only thing I would say outside of that is don't let that be an excuse, because sometimes the environment isn't ideal, but we still got to get the words done. And in those situations, you just got to grit your teeth and do the thing.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you said just do something. And yeah, once you get started, then you just have to make it better later, right? I mean,
exactly.
Get some words down. And I think, to be fair, I think it's harder as a discovery writer because you don't have an outline. And so I always say to people, I write out of order because I don't know where it's going. So I will just start writing that fight scene or whatever it is, and then I'll figure out the rest of it later. So in a way, I guess it's easier because I just start wherever and then rearrange things. And then when you're writing your actual word chapters, you've got an outline. So do you just go start to finish? You just go in order?
Yes. When I have written out of order, it has always been a huge mistake for me. So I've always had to rewrite everything. Like this is terrible. We just got to start all the way over. So I just follow my outline. And that's another thing that I tell people, like if you are new to this and you are really, really struggling with not knowing what to write next, outline what the next scene really quickly. Just jot it down. If you don't have an outline, just whip something up really quickly so at least you know where to go. It's kind of like training wheels. It helps you out a little bit as you're going. So at least for me, it's like I always know what I need to write next. It's just sometimes I don't feel like writing it.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's also the same for me.
Right.
Yeah. So let's just talk about publishing then before we get into all the marketing side. So with an audience like you have and your marketing savvy and everything, what did you think around when you were publishing the first book? How did your publishing choices work?
Like, I think a lot of writers, I initially thought I was going to go traditional. I thought I understood the publishing landscape, but I wanted to make sure that I thoroughly researched my options. And I'm so glad I did, because I was definitely misinformed about traditional publishing. And I decided, after doing thorough research, I decided to go the indie route. I read a lot of books about both sides of things. I read a lot of articles, but the determining factor for me was actually interviewing other authors. And I interviewed a ton of people because I wanted to get the first person perspective of people who have actually been through either traditional or indie. And a vast majority of them were super negative and jaded. They were like, don't do it. If you become a writer, you're going to waste your life and you're never going to make any money and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they were just not happy with their life or their choices. But there were two authors who were really, really happy as writers, and one was indie and one was traditional. And the indie writer had just released independently their first novel, and it was selling well enough where they projected that by the second novel, they would be able to be doing this full time. So they weren't there yet, but they were nearing it. They saw the light at the end of the tunnel and were really, really excited about it. And then when I talked to the traditional author, she was an older woman, and she had been, basically, she was telling me that she was with her traditional publisher for 20 years and 10 books. And it was after the 20-year mark that her publishing house started taking her seriously, giving her higher advances, not cutting the book after 2 years on the shelf. And so basically, once she had been writing for 20 years, and at that point, she was able to transition into writing full time. And she was like, don't worry, if you're patient and you just write those books and keep at it and hound that publisher, eventually you'll be able to do it full time. And I just thought to myself, I don't want to wait 20 years.
I don't want to wait that long.
Yeah, like, I mean, basically she was at retirement age when she was able to do writing full time. And I was like, I don't want to wait till retirement age to do that. At the time, I was in my late 20s. So that's when I decided to go indie. And I still maintain that there are vast pros and cons to either indie or traditional. And I think hybrid is also a really great option. But it's just a matter of person's or the individual writer's strengths, their goals, and whether the pros and cons of each side matter to them. Because there are certain, for example, the biggest con, in my opinion, of indie publishing is that it can be expensive. But if you are in a financially comfortable place, that might not be as big of a problem for you as someone who is not in a financially comfortable place. So it's just a matter of weighing the pros and cons and seeing how heavily they impact your life.
And of course, there are lots of ways to bootstrap.
Exactly.
As an indie. So it doesn't have to be expensive, but you do have to invest in it as a business. If you want to make money, you do have to invest money, as you say, in terms of editing, cover design and all that. But just coming back there, you said you were misinformed about traditional publishing before you did that research. What did you think it was?
I thought, and this is something that a lot of writers, they talk to me and they all have the same impression, that the traditional publishing house are just going to do all the marketing for you. They're just going to promote you and try and make you a big deal. You know, that I thought what a lot of writers think, and that you're going to get the Stephen King experience. And I researched it, and it's like, Stephen King gets the Stephen King experience. Everyone else, you know, unless you have a large platform already and you've got this large audience, the odds are they're not going to invest a lot of marketing power in you. And I was like, well, that kind of sucks. And then I researched what the publishing house would do for me outside of marketing. And they were all things, I have a business background. They were all things that I was like, well, I'm comfortable doing this myself, and I'm comfortable. Anything that I don't know, I think I could easily learn. So the way I saw it is, well, if I'm going to be marketing myself, no matter which option I go, I would rather market myself and get the higher royalty check. So I think I'm going to go indie.
Yeah. And as you say, I mean, you weigh up every decision in the future. I mean, you might write a series in the future. I'm like 15 plus years into this now, and I have some ideas that I might pitch to various publishers. And for people who are newer to the industry listening, it's not a either or forever decision. Right. There's pros and cons every single time, every single book. So I think, and the industry changes so fast.
Exactly.
So I think it's good to reassess. But you mentioned there your business background, and I mean, just having a look at the various things you do. What are your multiple streams of income for your business right now?
Just going back on what you said really quickly, I'm actually in the process of becoming a bit of a hybrid author. So I could not agree more with you, where it's like reassess over time, because right now being hybrid is a great option for me, but at the start it wasn't. So definitely I encourage people to be open to opportunities and whatnot. Obviously, my biggest stream of income is my book sales. That's probably the highest percentage of my earnings. I have a YouTube channel, so I have ad revenue from my YouTube videos. I have the ads enabled. Sometimes I I accept sponsorships, which is when a company that is writing related will be like, hey, can you basically do a little mini commercial and promote us on your video? If you are going into YouTube or podcasting or something where you get sponsorships, I would just encourage you to pick the ones that maybe are the best fit for your audience, because I've received some wild sponsorship requests. I mean, I've had underwear requests. I had a mini cordless chainsaw. That was a strange one.
Oh, you should have done that.
I was kind of tempted. It's like, do you hate your manuscript? Do you want to saw it in half? Well, have I got the solution for you? But yeah, so just keep in mind, like I try to keep my sponsors writing related or social media related. I also have merch available for people who enjoy my YouTube channel or my books. I do affiliate arrangements with other writing related companies like NovelPad. And I have courses that people can take and learn a little bit more about the publishing process and marketing themselves. So yeah, those are my various streams of income. I would say book sales are my most prominent stream of income. And then after that, it would be YouTube ad revenue or sponsorships.
So let's come back on the video then, because you said earlier that you are an introvert and you do video. So people always say to me like, oh, you're not an introvert because you do podcasting. And I'm like, that just doesn't make any sense because, you know, it's just the two of us as we're doing this. And I do social media and all the stuff you do as well. But I definitely do not do much video. And my YouTube channel, The Creative Penn, is mostly audio only with an image on top. And many authors hate the thought of video. So what are your tips for authors who kind of know that we really should do video these days, but we just hate it and we're worried about it, or it's just too much work? And so what are your thoughts there?
This is another situation where it's understand that it's normal. It's uncomfortable, especially at first. I've been doing this for 10 years now, and I still get like, do I look okay? Like, is my lipstick smudged? You know, I still have those moments, but it's an adjustment like anything else. It will eventually start to feel just like a normal part of your life. And if people are like, oh, I'm too introverted to do this, you're just talking into a camera. No one else is there. It tuckers me out just in the sense of how much talking I have to do because I batch film. I'll film all my videos for 1 month in one day. So that element will exhaust me, but it doesn't tire me out in the same way socializing does because I'm not talking to anyone. I'm talking to a camera. I am alone in my studio. So I think what I would tell writers is that it will feel better as time goes on. Don't wait for everything to be perfect because you need trial and error to perfect your channel. Your first few videos are going to be your worst. You're going to cringe later when you watch them, but you need to get them done. You need to start somewhere. So just understand that it's only going to go up from there. So get those first few videos out, see how they perform, see what's going right, see what's going wrong, see what people are responding to, what they're not responding to, and tweak and adjust from there. But my biggest piece of advice, especially because writers are introverted and uncomfortable in front of the camera, is to be authentic. As someone who did videos for months before they saw any traction, it was once I stopped trying to put on this professional front and I started just behaving like myself. That's when my videos started to perform well. So authenticity is something that people can absolutely, notice and respond to, especially on a platform like YouTube. You may think you're weird or quirky or boring or something like that. Just be your authentic self. Someone out there will appreciate it.
And I mean, both you and I have our primary media platforms, I guess, for the non-fiction audience, the authors. So how would someone, if they want to, I guess, advertise or market or build a channel around their fiction, do you have some ideas for more about that rather than the tip-based content?
Right. Just in general, I think that at this point, if you're getting on YouTube specifically, I wouldn't recommend giving writing advice just because when I started my channel, I was very lucky because there were only 2 other writing advice channels out there. So I was kind of entering into an untapped market. And now that I've been doing this for 10 years, there's a bazillion different writing channels out there. So I wouldn't even for nonfiction writers necessarily recommend giving writing advice on YouTube just because at this point it is a saturated market. And a lot of the people who give writing advice on YouTube or not a lot of the people, but there's a handful of people on YouTube who are bestsellers and award winners and things like that. And so if someone has their choice of where they're going to get writing advice on YouTube, they're probably going to go to someone with credentials versus someone who's newer and trying to get their name out there. But there are a ton of other options available for YouTube. And what I like to tell writers is think about your target audience and what they're interested in. So for example, if you're writing romantasy like me, maybe talk about the art of romantasy. Maybe talk about your favorite romantasy books, your favorite romantasy movies, your favorite romance tropes, your favorite fantasy tropes. You can bond with your audience over that sort of content. There are people who do book reviews on YouTube. It's known as BookTube. That's very popular, and you are welcome to do that. My only warning I would give is that if you are a public reviewer, when it comes time to release your own book, just take into consideration that people are going to judge your work harsher than they would have otherwise because you're a book reviewer, because you're out there giving quote unquote professional opinions about other books. People are going to be like, okay, well, they have strong opinions about other books. I'm going to have strong opinions about theirs. So just something to take into consideration. But more than anything, I would tap into your target audience, what they're interested in. That's what a lot of writers on YouTube do. If they're writing sci-fi, they will talk about sci-fi on their channel. They'll talk about the newest sci-fi movie. They'll talk about the tropes utilize, the writing style of it. And fellow sci-fi geeks will watch and be like, wow, this is really, really interesting. And then once that YouTuber's like, hey, I've got a book, check it out, you've attracted the appropriate audience to then purchase that book.
Well, let's talk about the trend of short form video. So obviously TikTok and BookTok is the big thing right now, and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts has appeared to sort of try and capture that similar vibe. So do you do these short form videos? Like, how has video changed?
What I do is I repurpose my YouTube content. I will take videos that I posted on YouTube and cut them down into little 1-minute segments and share them to TikTok. TikTok isn't my favorite platform, just because I prefer longer form videos. So for me, it's like, oh gosh, I got to make this quick little 15-second video. It's not my platform that I use. I do have TikTok, but I usually use it to repurpose my content or to talk about my books. And I think what other writers should keep in mind, because I know a lot of writers who are like there are some writers who are thriving on TikTok, and then there are some who are like, oh, I just can't do this. Just take into consideration that there are other options available. There are entire video essays on YouTube that have millions of views. So just because the short form content is popular, like if you're into that, definitely milk that for what it's worth. But if you're not so much into it, YouTube is still doing really, really well. And they're like I said, there are people who make hour-long video essays on YouTube that are absolutely killing it. So I think short form gives people a greater options of what they can do in terms of content, especially because making a 15-second video is obviously going to be significantly less time consuming than even a 15-minute YouTube video. So it definitely gives people greater options, but I don't feel like you have to be forced into just going the short form way, because there's still a lot of long form content available for people.
Yeah, and I think about YouTube a bit like I think about this podcast, which is it's more content marketing and like for you as well, the part of the business. Whereas I see short form video and social media as just marketing.
Yeah.
Whereas they're not necessarily content marketing. So people listening here and watching your channel, it is content. And that content can be a short story, or it can be whatever else with the fiction side. But I feel like what we make with these longer forms stick around longer. People can find things years later, whereas TikTok and the short form videos are almost designed to disappear.
Exactly. I mean, I had a TikTok blow up and get over 2 million views, but it didn't get me book sales. I mean, I'm sure maybe it got me a handful, you know what I mean? But the YouTube videos, every time I release a video, I get a spike in book sales. So that's not to say that TikTok can't be used to help you sell books. It's just the idea that I have videos that are 7 years old that are still selling books for me. Whereas that TikTok is just, it's faded into the distance. So it's just, yeah, I definitely think content marketing absolutely has its place and its value.
Yeah, and this is why authors need some kind of strategy, because with the huge number of splintered services now, I mean, if you try to do everything all the time, that's when people just give up, right? I mean, so you
Right.
have to choose. And it's interesting, like you said, you got in early on the YouTube writing stuff. I was one of the very first podcasts in the writing space, me and like Grammar Girl and Writing Excuses, and there were just a few of us in those early days. And again, similar, it's very crowded now. And I wouldn't put people off entirely from trying to start something new. It's just very, very hard to kind of break through, and you kind of have to go super, super niche. But can I just ask about some other types of videos? So one of the things that many authors are doing for the ad revenue is putting whole audiobooks on
Mhm.
YouTube. What do you think about that?
I think if it works for them, that's fantastic. It wouldn't be the best option for me because my audiobooks, just selling them on Audible and Amazon, are just killing it. So for me, it would be a decrease in revenue if I were to do it that way. However, I mean, the way I see it is it's all about whatever works for that individual person. I know some people who are putting their audiobooks on YouTube because of the ad revenue and they're making money that way. I know some people who are doing it solely because their platform's really small and they're hoping that if I give this book away essentially for free, I will attract an audience. And I'm all about, when it comes to business, experimentation, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, and not being afraid to experiment. And I don't really see, if, for example, if they were to put their audiobook on YouTube and they didn't make a lot of money off of it, I don't really see that as a failure. I see that as like a learning experience. So it's like, okay, well, now I know I won't do that again. And what's the next step, So I'm all for people doing that. I don't think it would work for me, but I think anything you could do to try and experiment within the industry and try to increase your revenue somehow, I'm like, so long as it's ethical, go for it. Try it out.
Okay, well then something that was popular over a decade ago when I first started out was the book trailer. And what's interesting is it used to cost us so much money to do a book trailer. And obviously now the tools are much, much better in terms of AI images and AI for marketing. And you can find licensed music for cheap and all of this. And I've started to see book trailers on social media because a 30-second video or a 10-second video can be quite interesting. So what do you think around the book trailer type video where it's not the author, it is the story or the hook or whatever?
I think, and I don't know if they'd necessarily count as book trailers, but I see reels all the time on Instagram. And then I see TikToks, obviously, where it's like beautiful imagery, character artwork, and then quotes from the book with music. I've made those myself. They're really easy to make. And it's one of those things where you could make one of those in less than a half hour. It might as well give it a shot and throw it out there and see how it works. And I know a lot of authors who that's how they make their book sales, is they make those beautiful little trailers and they just post them constantly. And sometimes they'll boost them online. They'll put some ad revenue behind it. And that's how they're able to support themselves as an author, especially like right now, the writing industry has evolved so much, and social media, as annoying as it can be, it's social media is the reason that a lot of us are now able to do writing full time. So this is another situation where I'm like, go for it. Try, make the little book trailer. You can do it easily on Canva, and that's available pretty much for everyone. So yeah, I know people who their entire careers revolve around just making these cute little videos with character art. And there are wonderful character artists that you could hire to create entire elaborate scenes from your book, and it's very affordable. Yeah, I say go for it. And like I said, I've done it myself.
So you mentioned Canva, which I also use, is fantastic. What are some of the other tools that you use as part of your YouTube side of things, making videos?
Well, I'm at this point in my career now where I have a video editing team. So I now get to outsource those tasks, thankfully, because that was the least fun part of YouTube. But before then, I would edit my videos using iMovie as well as Final Cut Pro. iMovie is free, available to anyone with a Mac. You don't need the fancy tools in order to edit your YouTube content. iMovie works just fine. I would use Final Cut Pro for some of the more, for example, book trailers that I would post to YouTube, as well as some of the fancier overlays and imagery and things like that. That's what I would use Final Cut Pro for. I have a screen so that I can sort of watch myself while I'm filming and make sure I look okay. I obviously have the camera. I have a ring light and then two, I don't spotlights, I guess. And then of course I have the onstage it's a podcast microphone. A lot of equipment, basically. My studio is just filled with lights and cameras and all that good stuff. But a lot of people hear this and think that they need to, if they're going onto YouTube, they need to immediately have these items. What I started with was natural light from my window and good microphone. And I used the camera on my laptop. So just understand that. And I personally wouldn't recommend, if you are getting into YouTube specifically, investing a whole lot of money at the start, because some people try out YouTube and after 6 months, they're like, I hate this. I don't want to do this. This is not for me. And what a shame it would be if you spent thousands of dollars on a YouTube setup that you don't want to use anymore. So if you're going to invest in anything, I would recommend investing in a good microphone, but you can get a good microphone for a really good price. But yeah, there's nothing wrong with natural light and using your iPhone camera to get started.
Yeah, although if you're going to use an iPhone camera, put it on a stand. Don't hold it.
Yes, exactly.
Or people will feel sick.
Yeah.
I think that's true over time. So both you and I have been doing these various parts of our business for quite a few years now. And I wondered if you're thinking about reinvention. I hit my 15 years just before Christmas, and this podcast has been going since 2009. So I start to feel like, there are new voices around, there are different ways of doing things, and I'm very interested in reinvention at the moment, although I'm kind of calling it a very slow pivot reinvention because I'm still enjoying myself. But What do you think, as someone who's been doing YouTube for so long as well, like what are your thoughts as to what's coming next for you, or do you have any plans for new series, or what's next for Jenna?
Absolutely. This is actually something that I've been thinking about a lot lately, especially because I'm at my 10-year mark with YouTube, and my family recently went through sort of a medical crisis and we're on the other end of it and things are so much better. And those sort of things make you reevaluate your life, and it's like, what's working and what maybe is something that I kind of want to leave in the past. And so I've already kind of in the process of tweaking my YouTube channel. I'm making shorter videos that are a little bit easier for me to digest and produce. And that way I can put a lot more focus on my writing, because in the past, sometimes there would be so much YouTube stuff going on that it would eclipse my writing time, and it defeats the purpose. I'm doing YouTube to support my writing, not to eclipse my writing. But I mentioned earlier that I am in the process of sort of segueing into being a hybrid author. I can't talk about the specifics quite yet, but that's definitely a new venture that I'm looking into that has been very, very exciting. So that's sort of part of the reinvention, is now I will be both independently and traditionally published, which is really, really fun for me. And also, I'm still finishing up the Savior series. I'm almost done with the third book, and then I will get started on the fourth book. But I would like to venture into books with a little bit less violence. So I was thinking about dabbling in rom-coms and things that are a bit fluffier and on the cute side. And I have a whole bunch of books that I would like to produce eventually. But right now, I'm just focusing on one step at a time, which is finishing up contracts on the hybrid side of things, as well as tweaking my YouTube channel and finishing up the 2 writing projects that I'm currently working on.
Fantastic. So where can people find you and your books and everything you do online?
Awesome. Well, people can find me on YouTube at youtube.com/Jenna Moreci. That's JennaMoreci. They can follow me on Instagram, TikTok, all of those places at Jenna Moreci. I keep it pretty standard, so I'm easy to find. The only one that's different is Facebook, which is author Jenna Moreci. And my books are available at all major retailers. So you can find them on Amazon, you can find them at Barnes & Noble, you can find them all over the place. Right now, the books that are available are The Savior's Champion, The Savior's Sister, and Shut Up and Write the Book. But The Savior's Army, and then another secret project is on its way.
Fantastic. Well, thanks so much for your time, Jenna. That was great.
Thank you. It was an absolute pleasure.
So I hope you found the discussion with Jenna interesting today, and that it gave you some ideas for writing as well as for video marketing and your author business. You can leave a comment on the podcast show notes at thecreativepenn.com or on the YouTube channel, or message me on X at thecreativepenn, or email me, joanna@thecreativepenn.com. Next week, I'm talking to Adam Beswick about planning for success in your indie author business and marketing on TikTok. So in the meantime, happy writing, and I'll see you next time. Thanks for listening today. I hope you found it helpful. You can find the backlist episodes and show notes at thecreativepenn.com/podcast. And you can get your free author blueprint at thecreativepenn.com/blueprint. If you'd like to connect, you can find me on Facebook and X at The Creative Penn, or on Instagram and Facebook at JFPennAuthor. Happy writing, and I'll see you next time.